Today, we are going to be breaking down the 2026 NFL Draft tight end class. If you are new, feel free to like, comment, and subscribe. We are going to be doing something very special this episode, and that is going to be giving you guys a top 15 on the regular YouTube show, but there are 26 tight ends that I have graded. This is exactly how I graded them, but if you guys want the full video, I am now going to be doing that over on a Patreon because I know that not all of you guys want to be able to study and watch over an hour-long to 2-hour-long video, and I know some of you guys really like that content. So it makes it easier, more streamlined for me to do it that way, have two different variants for those who are the super fans, and then those of you who are actually just more so here to skip to that part of the video. But this is super important, and I used to try to skip this to get a little bit more into the video, but I also think that this is a little bit different than a mock draft or a mock to mock. It's showing how I grade, and you know, you could watch an entire hour video and be like, I don't understand how the hell this guy grades. So it's time for me to tell you. And if you guys are not new to the show, you already know this, but these are the categories, and this is also the tier system that I do out of 100. I have kind of revamped it this year, and if you guys do want that premium option as well, feel free to let me know, where you guys get to see my entire board and the exact numerical breakdowns of everything. But this is broken down into a 1/100 scale based on these categories, and one extra, which is frame, but that's something that is already just kind of blended into the rest of the scores, and you guys get the hint when you get to see the height and the weight. But it's not just 1/100. You need context for it, and that's what these tier systems are going to be. It is the color in the top left of your screen to be between guys who are a starting tight end 1, a flex tight end 2, tight end 3, and then bench tight end 4 and beyond. So that's going to be kind of the tier system. And then you look at the categories. How do I actually break these players down? Route running, super duper key, right? You need to run routes to get open. But some guys, I will just skip to separation really quickly, use some physicality. They use speed. And that matters because then you get to see the discrepancy. Like, does this guy generate separation by route running, or does he generate it by speed if he's not a good route runner? There's certain ways of being able to generate separation, which I'm trying to be able to show you guys the full picture. But back to the second point, which is run after the catch, which is RAC stands for. It's how you handle the ball in your hands. And that is extremely important now in a very quick tempo offense. Getting those extra yards are more important now than ever. Blocking, pretty damn simplistic. It's, are you even good as a pass blocker? Surprisingly, this class, what I found was actually pretty good pass blocking, but on average, the blocking is not that great. I just found some guys who were abnormally good as pass blockers that I'm just not used to seeing at the position. But also separation, I indicated it. Do you get open? Some guys are really good route runners, but they don't do a head fake to where basically the defender just sticks to their hip the whole time. They're not having to second guess what your movement is, or you don't use enough physicality, so good defenders stick on your hip. There's an art to separation that is far more than just how quickly you can turn your hips. And then you got speed, of course. Burst, which is acceleration. If you see a higher burst grade than a speed grade, you hear the phrase, he is quicker than fast. That is the exact definition. Hands, this is going to be heavily rated on drop percentage. If you have about 6% and above, i.e. 6.54, you're going to have a pretty solid grade. But if you have it below that, 7, 8, 9, God forbid above 10%, which we have a couple of them in this class, then that's where shit hits the fan, and that's where you're going to see some F grades. Contested catch is really tricky on tight ends. For some reason, college quarterbacks do not like to throw contested catch balls to their tight ends very often, but I try to do it based on a volume as well as a consistency grade. Versus press, this will also bleed into separation as well as a whole bunch of other stuff. Basically, when a defender gets his hands on you, do you panic? Do you run into press? Or do you know, because you need to know this in the NFL, linebackers, safeties, they're going to get their hands on you. Can you operate even with the defenders on your ass? Do you catch in traffic well? There's a whole bunch of variations that go into that. And then, of course, there's the frame factor that I didn't include and it factor. So stuff like a past, motor, just being able to see how you end up playing. Do your teammates gravitate towards you? There's a whole bunch of stuff that I like to include in it factor, but let's get into this. And for you guys who are watching the YouTube show, we're jumping into the 15th overall tight end. So at number 15 overall, and starting out our main video, again, if you guys are, watching this on YouTube, we do have an extended version over on the Patreon, which gets up to 26. So an additional 11 tight ends, including a lot of them that you guys did ask for over on X. But Let's talk about his game versus Ole Miss. If you guys, again, are new, I do guide you guys through an entire game from my scouting report where essentially you're sitting here and watching it with me. It's play-by-play. I contradict myself in my notes, but it's essentially saying, hey, this is my gut reaction. This is exactly how I feel in the moment. So you get to actually, experience watching a player live with me. So let's talk about his game versus Ole Miss, to transfer to LSU. I ended up saying, ooh, he's a good mover off the bat, which he is, as you can see, B+, B+. That's pretty damn awesome. C is NFL adequate, so keep that in mind. He ended up getting a pancake block, unfortunately, ended up whiffing the play after that, so he is not a great blocker. He picks up speed big time, even on pull blocks. He had a nice hitch, and he ended up body catching it, though, which, again, when you look at the drop rate, a D grade is probably going to be around that 9 to 10% range. Not a huge fan of that. If it's over 10, you're probably looking at that F grade. But, when you body catch a hitch route, which is a button hook, curl, whatever you want to call it, most likely you don't trust your hands too much. So I do want him to get a little bit more of hand catching rather than body catching. He's not a great blocker overall. He flashed great contact balance on a tight end screen. He can vertically stretch the field, which, I think that's one of his best traits. He's a really solid receiving weapon if he can catch it, if he does not drop the ball. But he's definitely not a blocker. I said 100% a big slot. He got a touchdown and literally bench pressed the defensive back at the top of the cut. I want to see when tight ends do this, because I ended up talking about Ben Brahmer a little bit earlier. So spoiler alert for you guys who are hoping to see him on this list. I was really kind of seeing most of his effectiveness on pretty much when you bench press a cornerback or a defensive back at the top of your route. I really want that to be a little bit more nuanced, because the NFL, if refs see you extend your arms and bench press a player who's guarding you, that is a flag. That is offensive pass interference. So got to get a little bit more sneaky with it for both Brahmer as well as Sharp. But let's get back to it nonetheless. Even though he's not a good blocker, he can and will charge full speed into a hole to try to blow up a defender. You got to give him some credit. I feel like he holds back a little bit when running certain routes. They're not as crisp and aggressive as I think they could be. In other words, I think he's a really smooth mover. Running after the catch, you can see it as well. I honestly wonder how much he trusts himself to be able to sit and dig and try to cut at the highest level of intensity, which I think at LSU, especially coming after Mason Taylor, you get to end up seeing that he might end up really progressing in that category compared to Oklahoma, which I haven't seen a ton of route running tight end development from there, at least in very recent memory. But feel free to correct me on that. I'm trying to remember the last Oklahoma tight end outside of you look at the bigger names. I don't really remember pretty much being at least on the level of LSU's. But let's get back to it. He needs to sell more vertical before running and dropping into his hitch. I ended up talking about this a little bit on the extended version, but again, I think that, and everybody else on planet Earth thinks this, when you're going to stop and turn around, you need to make the defender think that you are not going to stop and turn around. You need to sell and do some form of route manipulation, and the best way to do that on button hooks, curls, whatever you want to call it, is to sell like you're going on a vertical, some type of route that causes the defender to back off. That generates some separation, and that causes you to be open. So definitely need him to do that a little bit more. He ended up then getting bitched by an off-zone defender. Not a fan of that. When a defender is sitting a little bit away from you, and especially when you have the size advantage, I do want you to be able to run through or past that motherfucker. So did not do that. Not a fan of that. Flashed some good route adjustment. So after the route was ran, he ended up seeing his quarterback bailing, ended up doing a good job trying to adjust and make the route the best possible outcome. Multiple plays in a row, he was open for a touch. Fuck. I'm just going to leave that in there. You know what? Screw it. I don't want to do the editing. But I said multiple plays in a row, open for a touchdown, and was not targeted. He ended up having a false start as well. He swatted the hands of a press defensive back and then dropped a short-range pass that had good placement. Not a fan of that. So pause. God, we got to hit a quick reset. You see that he swats the hands of the defender. I love seeing that. When a defender tries to press you, that's an easy way to where you get to actually then, you're dictating the engagement. Their hands aren't on you. Your hands just got on them, and you have pretty much just shown you're not getting your hands on me. You don't have the physical advantage here. and then you drop a short range pass with good placement. I can get it. There was actually Jack Velling, who I know this is going to ruffle some feathers, but he was earlier in the episode in the premium version. But there was a pass from Aiden Childs that was on his back shoulder he didn't bring in. I'll still get on your ass a little bit for that, because if it hits your hands, I think as a tight end, especially in the red zone, kind of your job to bring it in. But I'll give a little bit of a leash. When the ball is properly placed, that's where you can start getting me a little PO'd. So I'm not a huge fan of that play specifically. Ended up having a false start. I keep note of that because I just want to see how many times within a game, or, does he get in his own head? How does it end up playing into the psyche of his game? Didn't really end up doing too much. But I think I ended up already saying that anyways, but I ended up explaining why at least. He dropped a catch in traffic after that as well, so I don't like back-to-back drops. He tried some hero shit after the catch and lost a ton of yards, but he at least showed a nice spin move. He ended up seeing number 15 pop. I'm going to give a shout out to him. I know that that receiver, I ended up giving him a shout actually on X. I'm forgetting where he exactly transferred, but he just transferred to another school as well. We'll see if he ends up having a bigger role. Hitches, apart from a couple, have been a bit harder for him overall, but bottom line, Bauer Sharp is a really good athlete, really solid route runner. He's built to be a receiver. And if he can just catch the ball at a higher rate, get on the jugs machine, he can end up being a legitimate weapon that could end up going even in the top 100 and be similar to where Mason Taylor was. But again, got to improve that blocking ability. I love the motor to do it, but now let's fix the actual skill and then, get on the jugs machine. Then you can end up getting there because he's a really, really high ceiling athlete. At number 14, we have Dae'Quan Wright. And Dae'Quan Wright's a really fun tight end as well. Ole Miss now has a dynamic duo there with Luke Hasz, which we'll talk about in a little bit. And then, of course, Dae'Quan Wright. A lot of people love Dae'Quan Wright. I like Dae'Quan Wright as well. And again, really solid stats, except for those damn hands. I don't know what's up with the tight ends this year. No one can catch. I mean, I swear, the amount of Fs I've had to put for either contested catch or for just their hands grade, it breaks my heart. Breaks my heart. But let's talk about his game versus Georgia. He's a smooth mover. He has instant get off, and he is smooth when he ran a post route. He ended up being overthrown on that play for an interception, so that was the early play. I think that was the play where Jackson Dart got absolutely crushed. He ended up having good awareness to catch a tip ball after that. Has some good juice downfield as well. I mean, a B grade is a very solid grade. Remember, a C grade is going to be NFL adequate. So anything above that is something that you should keep your eye out for. He had some good blocks as well. He released and was not he ended up having a good release and was not targeted, but it would have been a touchdown. He is so fluid, even when he ends up getting past press coverage pretty fluidly as well. Some small hints of lower end motor. So I saw some plays where he wasn't going 100%. Some poor blocks as well. So they're scattered in there intermittently. A little bit oscillation between being a good blocker and a poor blocker. I said the more and more I get the more and more I watch him, the more I get worried about his overall motor. So that is something where I ended up putting it into the it factor as a little bit of a ding. He can run into press. He either ends up getting clean past it or right into it. So that's just going to be kind of a weird thing again. I don't understand why there are certain plays where he ends up doing a high motor thing. Sometimes he ends up being a little bit on the lax side. And then when it comes to press, he either gets right by it or he runs right into it. I don't understand the oscillation there. It's kind of confusing to see the lack of consistency. But I'm just saying, overall, he has some incredible flashes with some head-scratching concerns, which I think that sums it up perfectly. RJ Maryland is next. Let's talk about his game versus Florida State, which is actually a game I got to see in person. I actually saw all but I think the Cal game in person, which sucks because it would have been nice to see Fernando Mendoza in person. Of course, the one game I miss. I went to Baylor that day, so I think it's okay. But regardless, RJ Maryland has a season-ending injury. He is going to be a little bit more role-specific, which is why he has that 3- on the it factor. Starts out the game with having a pretty mediocre hitch route. His arms overall look pretty short, which leads, in my opinion, to some pretty poor blocking. He's not overly athletic for his size, which again, sub 240, you really start trying to think that they'd be on that Bauer level. Bauer Sharp, yeah. I would expect for it to be that B+, B+ range. It was not, and still very solid athlete overall. Just when you're sub 240, you're really hoping it would be that elite athleticism that can get you to the top. He ended up having a nice slant route. He has a cap top speed. DBs can catch up to him. So again, not extreme vertical threat. He ended up dropping a catch in traffic, but then he had back-to-back contested catch touchdowns. So, I mean, he ended up showing really good footwork, ended up showing the ability to catch through, obviously through traffic. He ended up having 50% on the year and only had 8 targets. So it's something that I have a little bit of an issue with this entire draft class. A lot of them did not have consistent contested catch targets, but RJ Maryland still showed in that small sample size that he was able to handle it, especially in the red zone. And that's a huge win right there. He ended up having some route fakes that he flashed as well. So I do love that because, again, when you run routes really well, defenders know how to cover routes. They just, like, the mental part of the game is where you could truly stack up as a starting or at least a role-playing tight end, which for RJ Maryland, I mean, he needs no introduction. He is a really, really solid player. Just needs to get back to healthy, and something I want to see him do. Joe Royer's next, and this is a really fun one. I mean, he also, if I'm not mistaken, is an Ohio State transfer to Cincinnati. Really fun player again. I mean, just he has a lot of positives to his game, and the problem is there's a lot of tight ends in this draft that I'm worried cannot play in line. And when you can't block, it's one of the biggest indicators of whether I trust you on the edge of an offensive line of scrimmage. But let's talk about his game versus Arizona State. He had a poor zone block off the bat, really solid get off, nice extension grab, and a lunge forward for extra yards. So, full range catch. Sorsby casually throwing pretty much at like right near the outside of his catch radius. So that is a great way to see how good are your hands. And, statistically, his hands are really solid. And then you end up seeing the actual tough catches. It's not just a bunch of screen passes this dude's catching to rack up those catches to where it kind of balances out the actual NFL throws where tight ends actually matter. But back to it. The other tight end ended up popping off vertically. So shout out to Cincinnati. They have a couple guys there. And Cincinnati arguably is one of the most underrated spots for tight ends. I mean, even Josh Wiley has remained, like, as a late pick, he's remained pretty damn relevant. So, I mean, that's pretty awesome to see. He ended up running into a catch. So, running into catch man. So catch man, basically defender waiting a couple yards off the line of scrimmage, waiting for you basically to catch you. And essentially, I can't explain this as well as actually, I think it's called First Down Academy. So shout out to them on Instagram. They do an amazing job, and they coached, I mean, they didn't directly coach me up, but they post a lot of stuff that allows me to see a little more of the intricacies of release packages, route running, and then on the defensive side, looking at different forms of coverage. And they post on their story all the time for you guys to basically like do a guessing game and stuff. And it actually really helps in terms of understanding the intricacies of the game that maybe unless you didn't play, which my experience has been running back and offensive and defensive line. Doesn't look like it, but it was true. But regardless, like for me, it's something that was more of a learning curve, and it's really made it more fun. So I really do like seeing that. But regardless, catch man, you're basically waiting and catching the player as the receiver as they're going by you to, stay on their momentum. And you got to be able to run through it or run past it. Don't run into it, which is why I don't like that versus press grade, because I'll throw that into the press coverage. Essentially, how do you handle players with their hands on you? But continuing into it, low-key, he is false starting a bit. Oh, excuse me. Wrong player. We're going to get to Luke Hasz in a second. Luke Hasz ends up false starting quite a bit. He's not really an asset as a blocker. His routes are not extremely crisp the way I was hoping for. I really wanted to like him more than I did. But again, really reliable hands. He has a lot of roles that he can end up doing. Good after the catch, good athlete, good hands. That's a really solid floor to have, but it is probably going to be a little bit more in the slot, more as a gadget weapon. Luke Hasz is next. I spoiled it. A lot of people have this guy as their tight end 1, tight end 2. I get it. It's a really tight middle group of the class. I think even up to tight end 5, they're all within the 3-point gap. So again, keep that. I lied. I actually think tight end 7 is 4 points ahead of this, but it's a relatively close group. And so we'll talk about Luke Hasz here. He transferred from Arkansas to Ole Miss. One thing I will note, which is one of the factors of the it factor, I did not like the fact that he was throwing up his arms and having a lot of attitude on the field. I understand that frustration's a real thing, and when Taylon Green continues to throw absolute YOLO darts to players, it could get frustrating. But as much as you are a kid in college, you're also a professional. You're getting paid as well. I mean, that's just the NIL era. Um, don't do that. I mean, it's just like if you have a girlfriend and she disagrees with you, it's just so nice when they don't do it in front of all your friends. And like they can just bring you to the side, or in this case, talk about it on the sideline. Be like, "Hey, man, I've been wide open. Like, what's going on?" Or talk about it in the huddle. Like, there's just a different way to doing it than just kind of acting out and lashing out in public or on the field in this case. And as a Steelers fan, I'm the one who understands this more than anything. I see guys throwing up their hands. I mean, whether you see all the memes of DK and George Pickens before we traded him, essentially like brawling dudes down the field. I understand personality and it being extremely erratic. So getting back to it, Luke Hasz, good athleticism off the bat. Really good athlete, especially. He's a little bit more explosive than fast, but he is a really explosive player. He can overcommit as a blocker. His arms appear to be pretty short. He's twitchy and flashes as a route runner. He seems to be in line for the most part. So something that's a little bit concerning is the fact that, I mean, his role was very much in line, but I kind of want him in the slot based on the fact that he's not a really good blocker. He slid off a block, leading to a tackle for loss. He handled a spin move well, though, in pass protection. Again, I ended up highlighting this actually a little bit earlier. I don't know if I ended up highlighting it in the intro for y'all, but there's certain players that just flash in pass protection, and they're not good run blockers. I'm like, how, Sway? I mean, like, it's usually the opposite with offensive linemen, where they'll just be a hog molly in the run game, and they just don't know how to pass pro. I don't get how you could do the opposite. But he freezes before trying to cut. He freezes before cutting, trying to do a route fake. So apologies for that. Basically, right when he's trying to say, oh, let's say he's running an in route and he's going to fake doing it out, he'll stop and then do the fake. And it's like, they know you're cutting, bro. Like, I hate to say it. And he has such a good acceleration. I think it's worked for him in the past. I do not trust that versus NFL level defensive backs. Like, they have the explosiveness too. So if you freeze in place and you start faking, they know a cut's coming. So that's what makes me a little bit concerned. At least he's explosive and a good route runner to where it could end up being semi-efficient. I just don't know how much that translates to the NFL. But getting back to it, I said low-key, he's false starting a little bit. He kind of moves like Thomas Fadone, so a very unique movement style. His freezes are insane indicators. So what I was just saying, they know you're cutting, bro. It's like putting a hat on someone who he already has hair recession right here. Like, the hair's back to here. We know you're balding, bro. The hat's not hiding it. Like, let's maybe get a toupee, something going on. All love for my balding people out there. Rogaine, shout out to Hims. Really good brand. I don't use it, but I mean, I know that they're at least doing something good. I don't know why I give a Hims shout out. They're not sponsors of the show. Willing to get paid by you, though. Continuing. The weird thing is that he will be a slot only in the NFL due to his bad blocking, but he only plays inline when he's at Arkansas. We'll see if that changes when he is at Ole Miss. A very unique system there, especially with Dae'Quan Wright, who, I mean, we just talked about it. He's actually not a bad blocker. So maybe it could end up actually working out as a nice 1-2 dynamic duo. Eli Stowers is next. Again, another player who a lot of people have very, very high on their list. I think he's just very role specific. And if you look at it, he's pretty much NFL adequate in everywhere except for the YOLO balls, right? This is not somebody, and again, when you're 6'4", 235, you don't look like someone who should be, unless you're a pure wide receiver who's 6'4", 235, someone who should be going up and being the primary contested catch candidate. That's just the problem. But every other part of his game is pretty damn awesome. Let's talk about his notes here from the University of Texas. Just like I talked about Luke Hasz, we'll talk about Eli Stowers versus Texas. Really solid movement skills. He was used in an option. So again, really like to see that he is so versatile as a weapon piece there. And that's why Vandy was so successful. They used Pavia as well as Stowers very, very well. Some solid wall offs. So when he's blocking, he ended up actually in zone blocking. He walled off the lane for the runner, which surprising, but I didn't see it being overly consistent. At least you get to see it, which is, again, hence why it is over my standard for NFL adequate. Continuing though, his 180-degree cuts are solid, so the hitches, but the ins and outs are not great. So I said 180s are solid, 90s were not great. So hitches, comebacks, etc. Those are going to be the 180-degree cuts. You're going forward, now you're going back. But when it comes to the 90-degree cuts, which are those ins and outs, I do have a little bit less comfortability with him. His top speed is relatively capped compared to what I imagined, especially given his explosiveness. He ended up having a poor route fake when he was running a post route. He ended up dropping a catch in traffic, but I mean, I think it was his only drop on the year. His top speed does indeed appear to be capped. He can run into press coverage, some flashes of avoiding press, but not too much. Ended up having a touchdown on an angle route, which, again, you were listening earlier in the show to the premium version, then you end up hearing that some tight ends just cannot run angle routes. But Eli Stowers is just built different. But he's a really fun player. Again, just a really small build. It's going to be very unique to see how he's ended up used in the NFL. At number 9, we have Oscar Delp. And talk about an underwhelming season. I mean, there were talks of this guy being tight end 1 for some people last year coming into it. It's very unfortunate, but let's talk about his overall performance versus Notre Dame. Good linebackers, good DBs. Honestly, really translatable. Starts out the game with having a poor zone block. Again, not a really elite defensive line, so you should be seeing some more success in that category. We did not. He has very sharp cuts, but not necessarily the best burst so far when it comes off the line. He fell down and ended up slipping off a block for a tackle for loss. He got blown up in pass protection, leading to a big hit on the quarterback. Ended up having a nice skinny post with some run after the catch, just not a good blocker. Shows some good flashes after the catch as well. Needs to watch out for leaning before cutting. Appears to be a receiving tight end only, which essentially is a glorified receiver. That's unfortunately, when you look at everything, you're a great route runner. You're good after the catch. You're an athlete. You're not a contested catch threat. To me, that just screams you're a wide receiver, just trapped in a really, really solid build. And that's a bit concerning, which could explain why, obviously, he is no Brock Bowers, because Brock Bowers was, he was balanced in every single category. And I'm hoping to see that bounce back from Delp, but again, it's very tough to kind of wash away what we just saw this past year. Josh Cuevas is next. And again, I watched this in all 22. Please forgive me if I mispronounce a name, and please correct me. Be a dick, just don't be a dick about it. Josh Cuevas, and again, please, I would rather make this mistake on this video and then not make that mistake again. But this dude surprised me because this dude is thick. And I think I probably ended up, I gotta say, this dude looks like a unit. Holy shit. That's my first line, dead ass in my notes. We're talking about his game versus Auburn in this one. It's just, this dude, you just look at him and he's massive. So you'd think that's okay, he's 250 and he looks like an absolute unit. Guy needs to cut down on the calories, right? This dude then just moves unbelievably well. Let's just go into the notes and we'll talk about it. I said relatively fluid. I said this motherfucker is vertical speed. Just caught me out of the blue. Number 87 popped, so gotta love that. And I said this dude can fly. What? In all caps. So it's just such a surprise to see someone who looks physically built the way he does move as well as he does. He just weaved past defensive backs. What the hell is going on? Not a great blocker from the limited reps, but he does have flashes. He's not a good blocker in open space. Super buried in the rotation, but huge upside. The problem is, does not get targeted as a contested catch threat. But my goodness, talk about a player who has legitimate tight end 1 potential if utilized consistently. And again, we don't know what his contested catch grade is. That's just the biggest problem. And he's just so buried in the rotation that you don't see him for a couple drives up to a quarter. But Josh Cuevas, man, I cannot believe how jaw-dropped I was watching him. He's a really, really good tight end. Let's get into number 7. We have John Michael Gyllenborg. Wyoming tight end of all things. I'm like, what the hell? Why am I studying one of these guys? But we had all 22 on him. That's the thing. All these players are exclusively graded in all 22 as well, if you guys are new. I do not grade players outside of that. I just hold myself to that standard. I'd rather not have a grade on a player that's popular than force a grade from, not all 22 tape. Because I think that's just a quality control thing. But regardless, let's talk about his game versus Boise State. He low-key popped off the bat as a blocker, which I actually think he does a pretty good job. It's funny because we'll talk about it later. Ahmed Hassanin, the first drafted Egyptian, so shout out to him. He actually ended up being handled by John Michael Gyllenborg. But very heavy rotation off the bat. he has some real vertical push on the defense. Vertical push, i.e. being fast. He's a bit stiff in open space. One-hand snag on a flat route. So love to see that. He has a higher drop rate and a low contested catch rate. Interesting. I don't understand that because, I mean, usually you don't just nonchalantly one-hand snag a flat route if you can't catch in general. Don't understand that. Solid use of leveraging the shoulder against a defender. So remember when I was talking about bench pressing a defensive back and how obvious that's going to be at the next level? This is how you get a little bit more sneaky with it. You can then shove with your elbow by digging your shoulder into the corner and generating leverage on your route cut based off of that. I love seeing that. Flashing true vertical ability. I said, how on earth is he handling Abed Hassanin? Brought in as a primary pass blocker, so that's really good to see, and ended up having a very nice whip route. So, I mean, John Michael Gyllenborg, I mean, apart from the catch statistics, and, you know, again, after the catch, I was talking about him being pretty stiff, which it's hard to find someone who is a really good athlete who can run routes, but is stiff after the catch. Very weird combo. But again, I don't know if Wyoming is necessarily the place where that can breed, like they can necessarily develop him in the way that he should. So this is a very high ceiling prospect if he comes out. I mean, I'm very excited to see, but he caught my eye big time. And a lot of these guys in the top 7, zero clue they were going to catch my eye. And again, this is grading system, if you guys are new to the series, is tougher than it was last year. So these tight ends are actually pretty damn awesome, even if they don't have the most awesome looking grades. Talk about Justin Joly versus Clemson, man. I mean, this guy just, I mean, statistically speaking, this dude's off the charts. You look at the contested catch rate, it's like near 70% on high volume. It's like, what the hell? But he pops off the bat with a swim move release. I remember this. It was actually a little bit, I believe it was an out or a corner route. He ended up just doing upper body release, you know, push past, swim over the defender, and then ended up getting open. He ended up having a big play on a wheel route, posted that on X. He definitely pops as a receiver. I said the scheme overall is garbage. I said something a little bit more French, if you will, but we'll keep to the word garbage because I've already used up the amount of bad words I can use this episode. He has some release moves overall. He flashed a comeback route as well. Needs to watch out for over stutter stepping. So something that we were just talking about a little bit earlier with Luke Hodge, where he's giving a lot of indicators that he's about to cut. Stutter stepping, also kind of telling someone, hey, by the way, about to cut, buddy. So just got to cut down on that. A lot of players, if they're really good athletes, can just do that, but it doesn't end up leading to a lot of success in the NFL. Lots of yards that were left on the table because he was not targeted. Ended up having a drop catch in traffic as well, because the overall drop rate, not necessarily ideal. But I mean, Justin Joly is somebody that, you know, if you're looking for somebody to really push the field, who you're just going to be more of a refined receiver with some blocks, with some like tight end applications, is like that red zone threat. Don't look too far. I mean, Justin Joly is quite your guy. Then we got someone who I had no clue this guy was going to be graded this highly. I mean, this dude just caught me really off guard. I think one person asked for him. Seydou Traore. Again, please forgive my pronunciation if I don't do that great of a job. I try my best. But let's talk about his game versus Ole Miss. Again, this is someone who I was tossing in as an extra, and I was like, but nice blocking rep off the bat. And I said, oh, damn, he's smooth. He flashed on with an outside release as well. And then I said in all caps, holy garbage, holy crap. He ended up burning a defensive back on a seam route. This dude is like an absolute freak as an athlete. Using physicality too, in all caps, who is this man? Ended up then having a fumble. He needs to watch out for elongated steps before cutting. It is an indication that he's going to cut. He has been solid as a blocker overall as well. Could not run into press as I wish he could not run into press as much, but still was overall wowed. And yeah, he has a pretty small frame, but the way he's utilized and the fact that he can block so well, I'm not going to ding him. I had to say, I'm not going to ding Seydou here. I think he's going to be a superstar if brought to the right system. So, I mean, I'm honestly kind of hoping Sean Payton brings him in and like lets Evan Ingram essentially be his like tester role for what Traore is. But let's continue on here because I can end up talking about Traore for a while. In my mock drafts coming up, I might try to include him in the first because if he runs in like the 4.4 range, you bet your ass people are going to be talking about him. And I think he could reach even the 4 threes based on how much he's burning down the field. Like, he is a true vertical threat at tight end. But Max Klare, let's not take away from the love that I have for this player. Really fun tight end from Purdue. I am wearing some Ohio State bomber jacket merch, which is funny because it's like 90 degrees outside in Texas. Is what it is. Like, I'm wearing a wife pleaser, as my girlfriend likes to call it, not a wife beater. Can't call it that. But yeah, we want to look a little bit more snazzy on the show. But let's talk about his game versus Ohio State, versus the team he ended up going to. He's a feisty blocker off the bat, which again, he ended up, I believe he was listed at 240, ended up dropping to 236 officially for Ohio State. We'll see if that ends up leading to anything, because personally, I thought he was doing pretty solid overall. Didn't really need to lose that weight. Maybe he's just more ripped. Some guys just lose a couple LBs. But flashed a swim release as well. Ended up talking about that a little earlier. Not a vertical threat, but was used as one for a particular rep, which actually ended up liking his speed a little bit more than what I mentioned there. He ended up flashing on an in route, so I really love his route running, like really good. He has some really good twitch as well. Flashing some more vertical speed overall. Wavering a little bit as a blocker. Handles press very well and can run routes at a high level. Can over leverage as a blocker, so leaning on the toes a little bit. 82, got to give him a shout out. He ain't half bad either. Flashing some playmaking IQ as well. Pretty impressed. Could see a solid jump at Ohio State. Just worried about him losing those 6 pounds. So, he's just a really, really fun player to watch. The statistics hands-wise, I know that the offense wasn't super solid, so these statistics can easily jump. Again, I want to highlight the fact that Tyler Warren was someone who I fell in love with in the last offseason and was just like, why the hell do you have if I'm not mistaken, I think it was a 15% drop rate. I'm like, what the hell is going on? But in one season, you can prove that A, you got on the jugs machine, but B, in a consistent usage in a higher level system with a better quarterback, drops ain't going to be a problem. So Max Klare, in the right situation, which I think Ohio State very well could easily end up vaulting the tight end 1. You have him at tight end 1, I am not going to blame you, because my tight end 3 is, I literally did not want to grade him because he has 90 yards as of last year. Yeah, I'm doing it again. You guys know my bullshit. Eli Raridon, man, this guy was just like, what in the hell am I watching? Like, one of the most jaw-dropping players that I have studied, and like for the fact of him having so little reps. But he was used a lot as a blocker, and we'll talk about it in just a second, versus Indiana, who has good offense or good defensive linemen, really good DBs, and some really solid linebackers as well. So actually a pretty solid team to look at. But it was his highest amount of, I believe, receiving reps. So it's good to see that as well. Twitchy movement and a nice hitch route. Good block in open space. Some really good blocks overall, which, as you see with the A+, ended up being like, ooh. And I said, oh man, he just beautifully ran a post route. Ended up posting that on X. It did not get targeted, and it would have been a touchdown. Just going to put that out there. He needs to sell vertical more when he's running hitch routes. First mid block out of 10. I love his blocking overall. He bobbled a low pass, but he did regain control of it. Unfortunately, the drop rate, if I'm not mistaken, is about 9 or 10%. I love his blocking overall. Ended up saying that already. Easily on 75% of his routes, or he could have been easily targeted on 75% of his routes and was blatantly ignored. Overall, wowed. And that's just the biggest thing, that last line. The amount of times, so the way I scout any sort of receiving or defensive back position, how would you end up playing if you get targeted on every rep? And for every DB, you're going to lose some. For every receiver, you're going to lose some. How do you lose? How often will you lose? And with Raridon, if he were targeted damn near every single play, and again, assuming the defense doesn't exactly know, like, of course, if you throw the same guy every single time, they're going to pick up on it. So again, assuming they don't pick up on it and they're just playing coverage the way that they've been doing, how are you going to be successful? Or are you going to be a failure? And with Raridon, it's like every single play you could target this guy. Every single play. He's 6'7", 251 as well, like elite build. And he's a great blocker. He's explosive. He's a like really good athlete. He runs solid routes. just kind of blows my mind. Again, I could end up being bit in the ass for this, and there's like a 95% chance that's the case. But I'm going to put my balls down on the table. I owe you guys honesty, not comfortability. This is just a player that I could easily see taking a massive step up now that, of course, we ended up seeing their number one tight end depart. So maybe Eli Raridon can end up soaking up a lot of that overall targets. So let's go on to number 2 again. This is actually the last tight end I watched. Miles Kitselman. Again, another name that I did not think about tossing in here. He's a little bit older. I got to admit, that's why he has a 3-. He is a bit of an older prospect. However, age is not necessarily something that really bothers me. We're seeing guys like Zach Ertz operate at a much older age very well. And so I'm not really concerned with it if you have the right traits, which I think Miles Kitselman does. Talk about his game versus Georgia, again, some pretty small notes. He has some heavier feet in space, but overall, not too shabby. Again, that's why he's not great after the catch, in my opinion. Some really good blocking, pretty damn smooth routes, which, I mean, again, I think he's one of the best in the whole entire class at route running. Not much creativity after the catch. He ended up having a rushing touchdown, though. Got to give him credit where credit's due. It was just pretty much a fullback dive. He's fluid as a route runner. He ended up dropping a catch in traffic. Not a fan of that, but I think it was just one of 2 drops on the year, if I'm not mistaken. He's been open several times and not targeted. Sound familiar? He sheds off press coverage very well. Constantly is open. Big fan even with the age. So really solid athleticism, really good route running, really reliable hands, and good against press coverage, and of course, a good blocker. So you're kind of selling me on that. I mean, it's just every single down, I'd be perfectly fine with someone who has those traits. I think he's going to be a super high ceiling or a super high floor player, which I think those 3 teams I mentioned below probably would really like a player like that, especially for the value that you'll get him. Again, he's not super young. You'll probably end up sniping him there on day 2, if not day 3. The last dude, I mean, Kenyon Sadiq. Holy Toledo. Like, watch out for this guy. I mean, just talk about a super weapon. I'll talk about his game versus Illinois. Again, really good defensive line, some really good linebackers, really good defensive backs. He was also his highest rep game. So, got to give him credit where credit's due. Starts out the game. I said, holy F. Did not just say F. There's another word that we substituted. But holy F, he just got a screen and looked great after the catch. So this was the first game I watched with him. And I did post that clip on X as well. And I was like, oh my God, this guy's crazy. Ended up having a jet sweep as well. And I said, oh my Lord, this guy is the athletic tools after the catch. Cannot wait to see if he can run routes or block. Funnily enough, I actually like him as a blocker. And surprisingly not as much as a route runner. But I think that should improve as he gets more and more routes or more and more reps. He got held a bit up by press and ended up falling down, but flashed some skill to get past it. So at least there was something there. Not too much playmaking IQ so far, which, essentially after you run your route, if it's covered, do you know how to get open again? Not overly confident with his blocking, but it hasn't been a liability at all. He was used quite frequently, actually, as a blocker. He ended up burning a defensive back deep. There you go. I mean, damn near at the same level as Traore in this class. But he ended up rounding an angle route into a defender. Not a fan of that. Again, talking about that route running, you really want to see. And I think this is actually a play where he was targeted as well. If not, it might have been an interception. I'm trying to remember it properly, but regardless, if you're running a route, probably don't go into the defender, go past the defender. It's not good when you do that, right? I mean, it's kind of messing up the tempo of the play, even if you do end up still being able to get the ball. But let's get back to it. He gets very toesy overall. He needs to watch his leverage when he's blocking. So that's just something, of course, when you are 245 and you're going up against 275 pound, I should say, players like Gabe Hasz, just gotta it's understandable why you might get a little bit toesy. But regardless, he gets a little bit toesy, finally had some better leverage and locked a defender down as a blocker. Ended up doing ×2, so I did it right after and also had another great block. And I said, WTF is this guy? He just walled off Hasz. So, again, talking about it, he has some really good reps even against the bigger defensive linemen. And I just said, he might be up there with some of the best tight ends I have ever studied. He just beautifully navigated the second level and has as a vertical threat. I said, holy crap. Did not use the word crap. Not a great third level blocker. What a nitpick. Completely floored. So, I mean, just looking at the athleticism, looking at the role that he'll be running, just don't, I mean, have some guys who will separate themselves with something outside of the speed and get this guy the ball. Bottom line, get this guy the ball. Throw it deep, throw it short. You don't have to be literally everything and everything, anything and everything. That's kind of what Brock Bowers was to me. Kenyon Sadiq, I mean, unbelievable. But thank you again for watching and spending all this time with me. I know this is going to be a little bit longer of a video, but it could be even longer if you guys want to go support me over at Patreon. See you later. Peace.